Do you love the ends of the bread? It's called the heel. And I love when I take my bread out of the oven after it's been baking for 20 minutes and my house smells wonderful. I love to take that bread out of my bread pans and take one of my long serrated knives and gently saw that heel off the bread and then slather some butter on it and then eat it, and just, oh my gosh, it tastes so delicious. And not only does it taste delicious, but it also gives me this feeling of satisfaction that I made this. But you know what? It took me 30 years to get that feeling of satisfaction, because most of the bread I made was a flop. In fact, I called myself the dough dud. I just could not figure out how to make good homemade bread. And then I learned about a really simple kitchen gadget. And this gadget, it changed my life because it changed the way I made bread. Just like we have two ends of a bread with two heels, the problem I had two problems that on both ends of the bread making process. One was at the beginning when I was trying to activate my yeast. The other was at the end when I went to slice my bread, and instead of having that wonderful heel that I could just eat and savor, I had doughy raw bread, even though I thought I cooked it enough. Well, this little kitchen tool, one of my bread baking secrets, really changed everything about that. It's very inexpensive and it's super easy to use. Are you wondering what it is? Can you take a guess? Well, let me introduce to you, an instant read thermometer. Now this is so simple. It has this long probe, and you just stick this into the bread or the other things I'm going to show you, and it tells you pretty quickly what the temperature is. Now, what I love about this instant read thermometer, I can use it for a lot of different uses, and at the end of this video, I'm going to give you some more uses for this instant read thermometer. But I have found so many uses that I found out I needed to have more than one, and you will too. And in fact, you know what? You might even have some of these in your drawer and you just didn't know what to do with it, or you didn't realize that this could be your secret in eliminating some of your bread problems. The first time that an instant read thermometer will be used in the bread making process is when you're getting to have the water at the correct temperature. Now, this might not always be water, sometimes it's another kind of liquid, like maybe milk. But the just right temperature for your yeast so that it doesn't get too hot and die, or it doesn't get warm enough and it never activates, is 115 to 120 degrees. Pretty easy. You put this in the water. I'm going to show you in a bit how that works. Before I made really good bread and I was a dough dud, I did a lot of research about how do I get the water to be the right temperature. And I kept hearing over and over, people would say, well, just get your water for your bread to be the same temperature as if you were getting a bath ready for your baby. Well, guess what? I did some research on that, and do you know what the top temperature should be for a baby's bath water? 100 degrees. In fact, better would be 98 degrees. So, whoa, if my bread were only that much, it would never activate. There's a far cry between 98 degrees or even 100 to 115 and 120. So, hey, here's a new lesson for you. Use your instant read thermometer to take the temperature of your baby's bath water, or maybe it's your grandchild. But you know what? That baby might start to cry if it's too warm. So there's another use for your instant read thermometer. And remember, if you want more uses for it, wait till the end of the video and I'll share that with you. Let me show you how easy it is to make sure that your water is at the correct temperature. Just turn on your water, let it flow, and I have a measuring cup handy here, but I'm going to let it flow until I feel like it gets to be about the right temperature. And you'll feel it, but this isn't going to be accurate enough. Remember, you're not going to just feel it. But now I'm like, oh, that's getting warm, and I'd rather check on it before it gets too warm. So let's just take this, and let's say I need 2 cups for my bread. So we're going to fill that up to 2 cups. And I feel like it's pretty good, but I always test it, even if I think it feels right. Okay, let's look here and see. Okay, it's moving, it's moving. All right, I think it needs to be a little warmer. When it gets really slow like that, I know, oh, I still need to get a little bit warmer. So let's do this. Yeah, all of a sudden it got pretty warm right there. Now, I would never bathe my baby in this warm water. All right, so I'm just going to put the thermometer in while it's filling up. I want about 2 cups. And let's just turn it off, the water off now, and let it finish. Okay, it's slow, but it's moving. I'm going to guess it's about right. Look at that, it's getting close to that 115. Make sure it's in there all the way. I really thought it was warmer than this. This is why I test it, because it felt warmer. In fact, I thought it was closer to like 118. You know, I just want to make sure that it is going to be plenty warm enough. And I know it's still moving. If I were doing bread, I would redo this until it got just a little bit over that 115. But it's sufficient for right now. So there you go. Now, just for your information, I always use instant yeast. So think about instant reed thermometer and instant yeast. I'm going to be teaching you great tips on how to have really incredible bread. And so just know that I'm using instant yeast, because when you use instant yeast, you do not have to use the technique called proofing. And I won't even explain what that is, but I eliminated that from my bread making process, as well as 4 other things that I don't do anymore that traditional bread calls for. So you want to make sure that you stay tuned to this channel so you'll learn those ideas too. Let's talk about the problem at the other end of the bread making process, and that is when we've taken the bread out of the oven and we go to slice it and it's raw and gooey on the inside. I'm telling you, that is the biggest disappointment, because you've just gone through this whole process. You've made sure it's kneaded correctly. What a disappointment. It almost makes you want to quit making bread. Well, remember, I was a dough judge, so I understand where you're coming from. One day I was watching a TV chef, and he gave this great hint, and he said, your bread will be fully cooked if it reaches at least 180 degrees Fahrenheit, or you can go up to 200. That was another revelation to me, and guess what? I was so happy that I had my instant reed thermometer, because before that I was just using it for my water. Now I realize, oh, this can help me on both ends of the bread making process, from the start to the finish. Let me explain how I do this and take the temperature. So I bake my bread for the recommended time. And by the way, I always do 3 loaves at a time. And I'll be sharing that in another video, why I do 3 loaves at a time. So I take one of the loaves out and I insert the instant reed thermometer. I push the probe down at the tallest part of the bread. I want to get right in the center where it maybe isn't cooked. But I also don't want it to hit the bottom of the bread pan, because then I'm taking the temperature with this little probe of the pan, which is going to be really hot. So do it just almost to the bottom, maybe, I don't know, an inch or 2 above the bottom. Now, when I'm taking the temperature, I find that the dial is like going really slow, and it's only like maybe at 120, then I'm not waiting any longer. I'm putting that loaf of bread back in the oven, cooking it for a few minutes. After I've done that, then I take the same loaf of bread, and you might only be cooking 1 loaf at a time, but as I said, I always do at least 3. And I insert the thermometer, and I usually just put it right in that same hole. And it, of course, by now, the temperature has gone up. So I'm going to assume, okay, my other 2 loaves must also be at temperature. But guess what? I don't assume, because this is so critical. The way that their loaves are placed in my oven, maybe the oven doesn't get as hot. So I always test every one. Just like I test my water every time, I test every loaf of bread. My friends will tease me because they'll see this hole that's at the top of my bread loaf. That has become my signature now, but it helps me to know that it has been tested. And here's another thing. It also helps to release extra steam out of the bread, and then the bread cools down more quickly. Now, as I said in the beginning, that's the time I take my serrated knife and I slice that heel off. But interestingly, I've been hearing from bread bakers that, oh no, you can't slice bread when it's hot. I'm like, what? That's like my reward. And they're telling me, oh, that's because, your bread could still be doughy in the middle, and if you wait for another 2 to 4 hours, are you kidding me? Waiting for 2 to 4 more hours after I've just baked my bread? That's when they say it'll be fully baked. Well, no, that's not true. If you will test your bread with your instant read thermometer, make sure it's at least 180, and if you want to go up to 200, maybe that's even a better idea. Then your bread will be fully baked. Here's another thing to remember. The brownness of your bread is not an indication of the doneness of your bread. And some people mistakenly think, oh, my bread's nice and brown, it must be done. They take it out because they baked it for the amount of time. So using these instructions that I just shared with you will totally eliminate having that doughy raw bread. And it will also eliminate that step that some people are telling us to do, to wait for 2 to 4 more hours. I'm not going to do that. I am ready to eat my bread when it comes out of the oven. And now you know 2 uses for this wonderful bread making tool, the instant read thermometer. The first is to make sure that the liquid that you're using in your bread recipe, which is usually water, is at 115 to 120 degrees. You want to do that before you pour the liquid into your mixing bowl with the other ingredients. The second one is when the other end of your bread making process, when you're ready to slice your bread and it's gooey and doughy. To eliminate that, you're going to make sure that this instant read thermometer is inserted into your bread and it comes to at least 180 degrees. Now, I shared with you ways to use this thermometer for your bread and also for your baby's bathwater or your grandchild or for your niece or nephew. I promised I would share other ideas with you as well. So if you want to get those ideas, just check the description below. And remember, if you want some more ideas for tips and tools and techniques in baking your own incredible bread, then be sure to keep joining our channel, because I want to make incredible bread with you.